welcome back to Get the Check. I'm Annika.
I'm Priya.
I'm Maya.
I'm Vidushi.
And today we are talking about the extension of the Uber-Waymo partnership.
Wait, before we get into that, I need the audience to know that Maya's banned from Cruise.
Oh my god, yeah. I don't want to talk about it.
No, I'm actually the most sad because I lost out on free cruises.
Yeah, it's tough. Because, I think we didn't pay for Uber for probably 3 months at that time.
Yeah.
I had signed up back in 2018.
Like, it was a wait list.
Yeah, it was like a wait list. And then once I moved, I got off the wait list. But it was so early that they were still beta testing and they didn't charge anyone. So I just had free cruises for 3 months.
And they also had very limited streets that they could go on. And our apartment wasn't one of those streets.
We would literally walk 10 minutes just to have a free cruise.
Well, there were honestly a lot of issues here. Because, sure, you saved out on, paying for Ubers, but how much time do you think you lost?
It would
in a
take
cruise?
triple the amount of time.
Okay, exactly. Was that worth it?
It was so rickety. You could tell they were beta testing that thing.
Wait, it's literally because the cruise can't take any left turns. They have to make 3 right turns every time. I'm like, this is like a 15-year-old driving me.
Or it's an Annika driving you.
Yeah, I can't drive.
Well, Annika can't even get behind the wheel. She doesn't have a license.
Well, Vidushi, you're teaching me soon.
Yeah, after the pod, I'll give you a little lesson.
A private lesson. Oh, boy. I have been in Passenger Princess.
Okay, anyway, back to the Uber and Waymo partnership. I read that Waymo is going to be completely integrated into the Uber app with the recent extension of their partnership.
Wait, yeah, now when you go into the Uber app in either Austin or Atlanta, you'll either randomly get paired with a driver or you'll randomly get paired with a Waymo, which is really interesting. And when you get paired with a Waymo, you can opt out of it if you're not comfortable getting in an AV. But I think it's really cool that it's just fully integrated into the app.
Yeah, Waymos have been a long time in the making. They started way back in 2009 developing in Google in secret, and then finally did their first ride in 2015. Then they spun off of Alphabet in 2016 to open themselves up to external investors. But their first commercial ride was in Phoenix in 2020. And obviously now we see it in SF all the time. They started in 2022.
I see Waymos every single time I step outside. And there's inevitably someone filming them.
Yeah, I saw John Summit made a TikTok about it.
Oh,
and
really?
It's just him in the Waymo, and he's like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I just forget that it's not a normalized thing to just see self-driving cars.
I feel like in cities like San Francisco and Austin, it makes sense. They're big tech hubs, so people are very likely to adopt new technology like that and actually trust it.
Yeah, and Phoenix actually is a great place to start too because the temperature is very temperate, and so you can test all year round. They also built relationships with people in government that were regulating transportation there really early on. And they had a partnership with the airport, too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I also feel like it probably was relatively flat. When I think of somewhere like San Francisco, where it's super hilly and there's a lot of one-ways that you have to deal with, I'm sure that that's a lot more difficult for them to map out compared to a city like Phoenix, where it's relatively flat, it's probably on a grid, and so it makes a lot of sense why they chose that.
It also, never rains or snows. So they don't even have to deal with those kind of issues of, storms or weather.
What do you guys think are the key reasons to take this deal as opposed to just competing with Uber? Because Waymo's app in SF, I think, does compete pretty directly with Uber, and they get riders.
Ride sharing with AV combined is just a really hard problem. There's the marketplace that you have to solve for. There's the fleet management. There's the actual self-driving technology. There's mapping out the city and deploying a fleet of cars to the city. It's possible for one company to own all of this, but I think it's easier to play to your own strengths and partner with another company to get off the ground and scale this business.
I think Waymo almost might be running an A/B test between different cities, because right now they've partnered with Austin and Atlanta, but within San Francisco they're still going to be independently operating Waymo One, and so they might be seeing how the performance compares in the two cities before fully deciding which route they want to go down, because it's not this partnership with Uber is
forever.
Everlasting.
Yeah. So my guess is that the Waymo and Uber partnership is here to stay at least for 5 years.
I could see that.
And do you think after those 5 years, their goal is to kind of spin off and continue building out their own marketplace? Or do you think they'll stay?
It takes decades to really build technology like this. I don't think we can predict anything about the future, but it's clear that there's strategy between all of these players, and the strategy isn't, oh, let's go have our own AV department. It's like there are other pieces of the pie to pick up in the AV space.
Yeah, and like we know that Waymo has been developing this research since 2009, like you mentioned. Like at the core, they really are an R&D company. That's their bread and butter. And so it makes sense that they would want to focus on that as opposed to the marketplace issue that you were just talking about.
Yeah, it seems that they're letting Uber take care of the marketplace and take care of fleet management. Since Uber is the king of operations, as we've seen,
Yeah.
Uber is probably going to apply their operations principles to a new sector of fleet management and do that well.
Yeah, and for years, Uber's been studying the correct wait times to give someone, the correct route to take. And while Waymo also has a relatively functioning app, I have to imagine Uber has done a better job of optimizing those things. Creating the optimal experience is important right now, as in cities like Atlanta, people start adopting this for the first time, because I actually read, and this really surprised me, that the American Automobile Association, not sure if they have a bias or not, but they did a study, or like a poll, I guess, and they found that over 90% of Americans are still not trusting of driverless cars, which makes sense because probably 90% of Americans, or probably 95 honestly, have never been in one.
Probably like 99.
Yeah. So I think like we're just in a bubble where people have, but I'm sure this Uber partnership will make Waymo way more mainstream.
Yeah, because on the Uber app, when you call an Uber now, if it's in a Waymo partnered city, you could be matched with the Waymo, whether you wanted that or intended that or not.
Yeah, and honestly, it's so annoying to have to wait longer for a car. I feel like a lot of the time, if I was someone where maybe I wouldn't want to get in a self-driving car because it's coming in 2 minutes, I'd be like, it's okay, I'll just get in it, as opposed to waiting another 10 minutes for a driver to come find me.
Yeah.
And it's also like now I've started to check the Uber app, the Lyft app, and the Waymo app, and reducing that would be
Which
nice.
is so tough.
Wait, before we talk more about this deal, though, I know that Waymo and Uber are actually enemies a long time ago.
Yeah, this is like an enemies to lovers story, which is super funny because they actually have had a ton of drama in the past. Uber wanted to go into autonomous vehicles for a long time on their own, kind of similar to how now Waymo has gone into ride hailing in SF. So they've always encroached on each other's territory a little bit. And there's actually this story where this engineer at Waymo, Anthony Lewandowski, he basically has 14,000 confidential files related to Waymo's LiDAR technology sent to himself, maybe like his personal computer or whatever.
That reminds me of like when you do training and like at every workplace training, it's always like, don't download company files on your personal laptop. Like it's crazy it actually happens.
Yeah.
No, literally. And it's 14,000 files is it's like his own Hillary Clinton scandal at that point. So he basically starts his own self-driving truck startup called Auto, but then Uber acquires that startup, and it's like, I don't know if it's propaganda, but some people say that maybe like they acquired it because they just wanted insider information on Waymo.
Wait, I 100% believe that.
Wait, so you think that
Well, Priya, let's not comment on Uber's M&A considering you're a former employee.
Wait, but
Yeah, she was pretty high up. She was an intern.
do you think that like Uber actually knew that this guy had stolen the files, or is it just not out there?
Well, they obviously knew he was an important engineer at Waymo.
Yeah, I feel like it could be in TK's personality. Like it gives that.
That's my
vibe.
boy TK.
Priya and Maya just consistently refer to CEOs like they're on speed dial, and I honestly don't know who they're talking about half the time. So if you're like me, they're talking about Uber CEO Travis Kalanick. I've never hear his last name said.
Right, because he's TK. Yeah, I mean, TK has some crazy stories. I know when I interned there, the culture I thought was really good, and I think Dara's done a really good job at creating that. But TK had a crazy reputation, and because of this whole scandal that you're talking about, he actually got pushed out of Uber.
Yeah, it was one of the reasons, right?
Yeah.
And that was super dramatic too.
I heard that Bill Gurley, which was an investor from Benchmark Capital, put him in a hotel room and waited for him to sign papers that he was stepping down as CEO.
Yeah, and basically in terms of the timeline, Waymo ends up suing Uber in February of 2017 because they figure out these 14,000 files were sent. And then Travis ends up getting pushed out as CEO partially because of this failed bet like 6 months later, like June 2017. And then February of 2018, the lawsuit is settled, and as a part of the lawsuit, they had to pay Waymo $235 million, which was about 0.3% of the company at that time.
Yeah, and a crucial part of this story is that Travis, a long time ago, wanted to take this huge bet on AV because he really believed in it and believed that that was the future. And because at the time Uber was not profitable and they were kind of just like draining money, there was a lot of investor pressure from people like Bill Gurley, who was an early investor in Uber, to drop that idea completely, get out of the AV space, and like focus on the road that they knew could make them profitable, as opposed to taking this like big bet on AV. And so that was like another big reason why, one, they acquired Otto, but also why Bill Gurley wanted to push TK out.
I think also they had a crash, and it was a pretty publicized crash. Yeah. And so at that point, they were taken off the road, and company morale went down. So it made sense to sell off that unit.
Yeah, so they ended up selling it off to Aurora Innovation for $4 billion. At the time, they were losing $8 billion.
That's honestly not... It's a terrible loss, I agree. But, like, they got some money back.
How long were they working on Uber ATG before they shut it down?
It was from 2015 to 2020. 2020 is when they finally sold off the...
Yeah, they sold it in 2020. And I honestly think them selling to Aurora Innovation was a good deal for them, because Aurora Innovation has been innovating on self-driving trucks, and they're doing good, and the holdings that Uber has in that company are still showing them returns.
They still have some shares, right?
Yeah.
They have like 25% of the company still, which is
crazy.
A significant
Yeah,
and a good amount of their profits that came last year was from their holdings in Aurora Innovation.
Yeah. I mean, this story clearly shows Uber's appetite for wanting to be a part of the AV space, but they needed to figure out a new way to still put their foot in the door, because I think there's this like impending doom of Uber of at some point all cars are going to be self-driving, and if they never transition to self-driving cars, no driver will want to drive.
Yeah. So is the deal that they're doing with Waymo now actually in their favor?
Yeah, we're not actually sure about the deal terms. Like, we don't know the split of the deal of how much Waymo is going to be making on each ride.
Maybe just to back up, Maya, as a resident fintech guru, can you explain the way the margins on like a typical Uber ride work? Because there's a lot of talk around what Uber needs to become profitable and their profit margins on each ride.
Yeah, so in the most recent earnings report, Uber reported a revenue margin of 29.8%. That revenue margin means that's the amount of money Uber takes home of each ride. So they basically take 30%. So if you take a $10 Uber ride, Uber takes $3 home. The other $7 is given to the driver, and that can include tolls as well as any sort of car maintenance fee, so gas, taking care of the car, repairing the car, and insurance as well. Yeah, so it's been reported that Uber drivers probably spend 25% of their income on maintaining their own car.
Yeah, and basically Uber doesn't have to deal with the depreciation cost or the operational inconvenience, but now they're taking that back on with the Waymo partnership.
So there's many ways this could work. We're not really sure, but Waymo could take 50% of an Uber ride, or they could take 70%. In the case that they take 50% of an Uber ride, Uber has like 20% to play with to put towards the operations cost of managing this fleet. But if Waymo takes closer to 70%, Uber's actually going to have to figure out how to fit this into their profit margin.
I think they would probably be able to increase efficiency here, because there's a lot of times where I'm waiting 5 to 10 minutes to get a car. But if you're able to like decrease the variability that comes with just like having people as drivers, I think that they could run and manage a much more efficient fleet.
I agree that a Waymo would be more efficient than an Uber driver. I also wonder what the revenue share is between Uber and Waymo, and I assume that with Waymo it's more like 50-50, because Waymo doesn't need to pay a driver, and then Uber is able to improve their profit margins by engaging in the partnership.
I actually disagree, though, because I think that Waymo would probably take closer to 70%, similar to what the driver makes, and Uber is really just trying to make sure that they don't get wedged out of the ride-sharing industry.
Either way, though, we know that Waymo is giving up some of their revenue. Why do you think they're making that decision?
Yeah, well, I think there's two key components here, but I think that the first one is trust. I think that because they're integrating into the Uber app, they already have high trust with their user base as opposed to making them download a new app and trust an entirely new technology.
Yeah, actually, I agree. I think there's also another big issue.
Well, I was going to say the biggest issue is capital, right? They probably want to focus their money towards developing the technology and the actual ride experience rather than all of the operational costs, the marketplace, the fleet management. It's beneficial for them to offload it onto Uber, but we can quantify that better, right?
We were doing some math earlier, and essentially we were trying to see how many cars need to be deployed if Waymo were to take 10% of Uber's market share. So Uber right now does 2.5 million rides a day. So 10% of that is 250K. And we know that there's a stat that Waymos do 15 rides a day. Maybe we can optimize that, but let's say we don't. That equates to having 16,666 cars, and each car is 180K. So this nets out to $3 billion just to deploy a fleet of cars to take that kind of size of rides. And so when you think about scaling to all these cities, they don't have that kind of capital to play with.
So for context, Waymo raised around $5 billion from external investors, and then Google recently committed another $5 billion to Waymo. So I think we can estimate that they have around $10 billion in funding.
Do you think they're going to recuperate that investment on any soon timeline?
Yeah, I think getting back to like my earlier point, the US rideshare market right now is $15.5 billion, and Uber owns 76% of that. And so Uber's market in the US is around 11 to 12 billion. And if Waymo hits just 10% of that, that's only $1 billion a year. One, they're not near hitting 10%. But two, even when they do that, it's going to be so hard to recuperate this investment.
Yeah, isn't the number closer to like 2% right now?
The number is close to single digits just in San Francisco.
Oh, just in San Francisco, right?
Yeah,
right.
So right now we know that Waymo does 4,300 rides a day, and in San Francisco alone, 170,000 rides are being done a day. So that's only single digit percentage. And we have no idea how they're also going to scale in San Francisco.
Well, I think because it's so early for them, there's still a lot of ways that they could optimize the cost. I don't think they're going to keep paying so much for Jaguars forever. Mm-hmm. I know they're looking into Hyundai and also looking into like a Chinese automobile company. Mm-hmm. I also saw a stat that 40% of a Waymo drive is empty. They don't have a rider in there. So they also need to optimize. Is that because they're mapping
it out, or is that because they're like going to the location of someone?
It's because they're going to the location to pick someone up. So they just don't have enough riders or enough traffic or optimization in their routes.
Yeah. Well, but we also don't know who's paying for these cars, right? Like it could be a 50-50 split. It could be 100% on Uber, but it also could be 100% on Waymo.
Yeah. I think though it's most likely on Uber just because we know Uber is $100 to $150 billion company. Mm-hmm. And so they have the kind of capital to play with. They have the revenue margins. And I think that's where they're trying to provide value in the AV space. They're basically saying to the AV companies, hey, we can help scale you. Because they're also partnering with Cruise as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that Uber is, it seems like they don't really care who they're partnering with as long as they can get into the industry and into the space themselves.
Yeah, I think Uber definitely realizes that if they don't get ahead of the competition and enter into the AV space now, they are going to get left behind. At some point, we're only going to see self-driving cars on the streets, and Uber won't have any value prop there. So if they're getting ahead and starting to learn how to do fleet management at scale, they can provide a value to all the AV companies that are coming into the space.
Yeah, I imagine like sometime in the future, Waymo might want to pull a move similar to Apple did with Intel, where Waymo first focuses on the experience, makes sure the technology is good, and then, switches out Uber's ride-hailing app for themselves, just the way that like Apple switched out their chips from Intel to their own chips. But at that point, it could be that they're not able to do that because Uber does it so well that the revenue share they're getting from Uber would always be greater than if they were to own that business themselves.
I personally think they will be able to do it because I think their ride-hailing app is already maybe 70% there. And I think that when they do that, they'll have built so much trust in the cities where they did this pilot program. And part of it is with the customers. Like, you're putting a lot of customers that maybe wouldn't otherwise get into an autonomous vehicle. But then part of it is also with regulatory bodies. Uber had a lot of regulatory hurdles in the beginning, and so they kind of have a playbook for how to get things passed. Like, even last year, there was Prop 22, which was around the way that independent contractors are classified. And
Wait, sorry, what's Prop 22?
so basically, Prop 22 would mean that gig workers, so for example, Uber drivers, have to be classified as employees, not independent contractors. And that would be a huge change. This is like a huge business model debate in companies that are marketplaces, where it's like, should the providers be like the Uber drivers, or like in growth therapy and Headway's example, the therapists, should they be employees or contractors? And we've seen it both ways. Uber does contractors, growth therapy does contractors, Headway does employees. And what's interesting about it is there's obviously very different requirements. Uber, but also other companies like Lyft and DoorDash, put $200 million behind Prop 22 advertising to like...
Wait, it was worth $200 million for them to like not have to pay their gig workers more through health insurance and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's just a lot more costs associated with like needing to have all these people be employees, because like health insurance, like basically it would structurally change their business model. So they're probably willing to pay a lot. But I think that the takeaway that's relevant to Waymo is, if this starts being on the ballot in certain states, or if certain politicians start talking more about regulation in this space, Uber can run ads that are like pro or anti EVs in their app.
But doesn't Google already have a lot of
Ad space?
ad space, and they have a lot of...
And like capital, and like in Washington, I guess, just like the things that they've lobbied for in the past.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think that Waymo would be incapable of doing it without Uber, but my understanding is that each state has like a Department of Transportation, and Uber's already worked with a lot of them, and that's who Waymo would need to work with to get a lot of these things passed.
Oh, Uber's like built up the relationships with these governments.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of public information, right, on like who at Uber knows like who at the Department of Transportation of like, I don't know, Georgia. But I have to think that compared to Google, they have like a lot more inroads, especially considering they pioneered something in the transportation space.
So for a company like Cruise, it actually makes sense that they're partnering up with Uber, because they've lost their regulation in some cities. And so Uber's advantage in the transportation space would help fast track them into that space again. So do you think their deal terms are different than what Waymo has with Uber, or pretty similar?
I would argue maybe similar or worse than Waymo, just because Waymo has more of an established presence and trust. And imagine if a Cruise mess ups, then that's also a hit on Uber's reputation.
Now Uber's dragging a woman through the streets of San Francisco, not just Cruise.
I think what happened, like a car hit a woman and involved.
Yeah, I think it was a regular car that hit the woman, and then the Cruise dragged her for 20 feet.
Yeah, and she died.
No, she's alive.
No, she didn't die. Oh my god.
People tell it so darkly that I just thought she was dead the whole time.
No, she's alive.
So yeah, in that case, you could say that Cruise honestly really needs Uber.
Wait, yeah, I think this discussion about Cruise brings up a larger point about the overall competitors in this space, because there's also like Tesla, right? There's Cruise, there's Waymo, Amazon has Zoox. So there's a bunch of players trying to get a piece of this pie, and a lot of them have been in development for years and years now.
Yeah, I think Cruise has been around just as long as Waymo, and also probably was beating Waymo for a little bit there.
At Outside Lands last year, that kind of started the exodus from San Francisco, because they created like a huge traffic jam, and it caused like a ton of issues within the city.
Yeah, there was so much external mistrust on Cruise, and so that brings the morale of the company down, which then leads to like the mass exodus of leadership in 2023.
I think it's going to be a really tough uphill battle for Cruise.
Yeah, another competitor is Zoox, unlike Waymo and Cruise, who use automotive companies.
Wait, they're so ugly.
Yeah, because they make their own car, actually.
But like, who
Call them out, Maya.
Dude, who chose green and pink? Like, objectively, it's not a good combo.
It looks the most like an actual robo-taxi. The others actually look like cars.
It's bi-directional. That's crazy.
Wait, the ones on the street right now aren't bi-directional, though.
It's in R&D, Maya.
Yeah, I guess it gives limo vibes. I don't know what they're trying to do there, but they're not close to being like ready for public launch. Right?
Yeah, Zoox hasn't launched yet. They're launching commercially in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've been in development for almost 10 years now.
Well, currently they're basically testing their vehicles in Vegas and in Foster City in California, and they're saying that they should be ready to start their own ride-hailing service in Las Vegas by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. But I feel like general public sentiment isn't as bullish on that ride-hailing service as it is on like Waymo or other competitors.
I think that's just because of like a lack of volume of rides and testing that they've been able to do compared to some of these competitors.
I'm surprised. I thought Amazon would be ahead of that.
It seems like they're focusing on developing this vehicle in-house, which maybe it's a bet that'll pay off like 10 years down the line, but at least from like the market that we see today.
But what if the bi-directional like car thing is just like a marketing play?
It's an expensive marketing play.
Well, I guess this is similar to like Tesla.
I was gonna say, I think Vidushi, you made the point of I would expect better from Amazon, but Tesla is equally a huge powerhouse, especially Elon, and he's been pushing out the release of
Robovin?
Rebovin. So ridiculous. Yeah, they recently announced the development of their cybercabs and Robovins, which everyone was really excited about, but I feel like they're the most gimmicky, and I mean, they're saying that they don't want to use LiDAR at all. They're going to do cameras only.
Sus.
Yeah, but I feel like in the most recent conference, there was a little bit of admission from him. Was there not?
A little.
Yeah, I mean, because it's been so many years, and he's been saying that Teslas will do full autonomous, and they have cameras only, and it's now 2024, and they still haven't been able to do it. Mm-hmm. And then he's also like volunteering cyber cabs that people own to do ride hailing during the day when they're not using it.
Bob, it's the middle of the night and your Tesla just starts backing out of your garage. and then as soon as it gets to the end, it just speeds away.
No, I think it's really interesting though, because they're still one of the few consumer car companies that is trying to bring full self-driving to the consumer, not as a robo-taxi service.
Actually, that's not true. Tesla is also developing their own ride-hailing app, which is being tested by employees in the Bay Area. Earlier this year, they said they were going to release it to the public around August.
Yeah, but then I was listening to their earnings call today, and Elon mentioned that they're actually planning to release it next year now, so who knows when it's going to come, because it keeps getting pushed out.
Yeah, for them it makes sense to not be on an app like Uber or Lyft because they can handle the fleet management and operations themselves. But it will be interesting to see how they can compete with those apps as a completely separate service.
Yeah, I personally think they have a long way to go. I've been in Teslas where people are using the self-driving or autopilot, and I genuinely thought it would be way better than it is. It'll just turn off randomly.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, where is that car going?
Yeah, I was in an Uber once, and he was like, oh, do you mind if I turn on full self-driving? And I was like, sure, I'll see this. He literally used it for 2 seconds and stopped
and then it starts
working.
beeping at you.
Yeah, and then he was like, never mind.
Yeah, but I feel like once they're able to actually perfect that technology, they'll be able to scale much faster than any other AV company, considering they already have 7 million produced vehicles to date.
Yeah, I would definitely categorize them as a dark horse in this race. But I think in general, there's just so much of market share here that we'll see all of these players develop over time. And I don't think one will kick one out soon.
Yeah, and there's the ride-hailing market that we've been talking about, but then there's the entire direct-to-consumer car market too. So at some point, they'll just start selling directly to consumers.
Then your Porsche Taycan that you're going to get, self-driving.
I want my Porsche.
Don't you also want a Porsche, Priya?
Yeah.
I kind of want a Lucid. They just look so nice.
They do, but
Or the Rivians.
the Rivian.
Rivian truck.
I could see Vidushi in a Rivian truck.
I would drive a Rivian truck.
Well, should we do our restaurant pick of the week?
Restaurant pick of the week.
Woo!
Restaurant pick of the
Zuni Cafe.
Why did you guys go to Zuni Cafe? I'm so confused.
We went when you were unavailable.
Yeah.
What was I doing? You didn't even invite me.
No.
Because we knew you were busy.
I thought about you.
Oh.
We had this soup. It was genuinely to die for. Because it was just tomato soup. But I was like, how great can you make tomato soup? Turns out it's really good.
I really wanted to order the shoestring potatoes, aka fries.
Zuni Cafe has one of those like menus where it's just ingredients.
Ingredients only. Farm to table. We're actually at the farm.
Cute. Cool. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. Well, there you have it, our takes on the Waymo and Uber deal, what we think is the future of that deal, and what we think is the strategy behind it. We hope you liked listening to our episode, and hope you tune in to the next episode. We're going to be talking about Kalshi and the prediction market space in general. We release episodes every Thursday, so yeah.
See you
Stay
soon.
tuned to hear if I lose my $1,500 in the Kalshi app right now.